Hello, it's Collette from the Sacred Rose Temple, and I'm here to give you this week's energy forecast. Okay, so we have got a lot going on in the collective. It is vamping up again, and of course, we're in high yang energy. After the solstice, we are declining in sun, but the yang energy within us is, the fruits have not been harvested, so we're still working in the inner landscapes of the psyche. There is a reminder that we're in 2025, which is the year of the snake. And the year of the snake is a really kind of transformative year. There is no mistake that during this year, we will truly remember that we are changing beings, that we can shed skins, that we do begin to make transformations. And usually those transformations are not always simple and easy, but can feel quite brutal and harsh. And like we're literally squeezing out of an old skin that no longer fits us. We've got to remember that the snake and the symbology of the snake is also multifaceted and multi-layered. And what I'm seeing is a whole lot of truth being shown and reclaimed in this energy of the shedding of the snake. It's kind of easy to be able to see that truth is being revealed on many levels, personally and within the collective. And we're beginning to see the truth of what our society is really made of. The false face is falling. I think people are more getting dubious about governments and politics and the media, and the circus of it is trying to be shown. We've been deceived, we've been lied to, and there is this vehicle that constantly is lying to us and creating a drama or a soap opera to keep us engaged and fascinated and external rather than focusing on the self and making reclamations there and becoming advanced in our own inner worlds and doing the work. And this really calls upon the feminine energy. The snake is the feminine. She's representative of the divine feminine. And so, what this year is calling is divine femininity, is women to step up, men too, holding their feminine energy as sacred and re educating ourselves on what that is. I mean, this has been my lifelong work to help with the reclamation of the divine feminine. I'm also really glad to see that the fakeness of the spiritual world is being revealed too. Those that have been self-proclaimed guru or have put on, performance or setting like a show to sell spiritual products, the false face of that is beginning to be seen. And there's been a lot of actors in our spiritual world that have used fancy dress to create a really good performance and show to bring women in and siphon energy, money, and all of that, rather than them being deeply rooted in their own self and inner work and just leading from a place of witness and sacred space holder to take women deeply into their own inner landscape, their own inner healing, and their own inner work. And yeah, there is been many labels and buzzwords in our spiritual world that are fake, and so that is all becoming very clear. And I hope that all of us are beginning to see through the illusion, especially of the old patriarchal gurus such as like Osho and Muji. And I'm glad to see that the owners of these and their old sacred sexual teachings, which are based in patriarchy. And, I'm not saying that they're all wrong. There are some truths hidden in that, but it's weaving through that. And I do not support any of those lineages anymore. I think they're done. And I think women that are teaching men's lineages need to step into their own lineage and their own work and reclaim that. So I think there's a huge spell being removed, and that women are saying, hang on, certification and authorization of certain teachings has been done through a very male dominated world, and a world with those men. I speak particularly about Osho here, that was abusive to women. And many of those gurus have been highlighted that. And I think we as women have to stand, all of us, and say, no, we don't represent these lineages. We don't stand for them anymore. We are in a space where we're reclaiming the divine feminine within us, and we become the snake that teaches. we do the inner work, so the creativity and the messages from the other world and the unseen come to us, and we deliver work for women. The men delivering work for women is gone. It's gone. We stick to our embodied experience, and a man teaching on sacred sexuality and women's work is not embodied. It's something that is untangibly, received. And I'm not saying again that all of it isn't, but how clear is the vessel? And that is what it always boils down to. So that's a little rant for me there. And just to encourage any women who are really truly looking at standing in their power as teachers, leaders, spiritual guides, to really reclaim your own inner ancestral teachings and wisdom. And you've got to do that by going into those wounds, traumas, do the inner healing, go through the ancestral lines and rites, and reclaim the medicine of your lineages. That brings through the most potent medicine into the world. And I just in the last week of teaching women for the Druidess, and it's been the crone wisdom, and just really blown away by the women that have shown up to do that course with me. They are oracles, they are keepers of ancient wisdom, and they're deeply tapping now into their own wisdom, into their own realms where they collect and collate that information to bring back, and many of them stepping into roles where they're going to gather women. And that will be even deeper for me in August when I begin to teach a new course for the shift. I'm currently recording this week with Shift Network to bring my next course. The title of that course will be revealed soon. I'm super excited. It's going to be really, really mind-blowing transformation for many women, and something that the shift had seen as a gap that was needed and was, being asked by many of their clients. So I'm super privileged to be able to deliver that. And in the year of the snake, when we are as women trying to reclaim and step into the position of the elders that we've projected on Indigenous populations and people far out of our reach. This is about self-reclamation of not worshipping those bigger people. In fact, I just stay away from anybody with like huge followings and entrepreneurial type energy, because spirituality isn't entrepreneurial. Spirituality is super embodied, grounded, connected to self and the work we do on ourselves, and that speaks for itself. So I really try in my marketing not for it to be about me, not to give away too much of the sacred teachings, and that the energy of what I do speaks for itself, and people come on the waves of frequency rather than the cell. So, yeah, big shifts there. But let's move on because I really want to get into what's coming. On the 7th of July, there's a huge, huge movement in our collective through the astrology, but I don't really want to focus on that too much because that's going to be of my next report. But I want to just tap into it because we're in the precursor for it. So on the 7th of July, we've got Uranus in Gemini, and that has not happened for 80 years. It's going to be a really huge collective and psycho-spiritual shift that will set the tone for the coming years. And I'll look at that more deeper. But it's about a rewiring of the collective mind. It's going to reawaken people into revolution, rebellion, disruption. And that is very much the sign of the snake. It's kind of bringing in new. We have to go through this whole process to bring through the new. And, Gemini is about the mind, communication, duality, technology, and being adaptability, having adaptability. So it's going to bring radical change in what we think, speak, learn, connect, and the evolution of our ideas. So I'm going to talk about that next week, but just think about that there's a rewiring going on with you. And you're more than likely feeling that at the moment, that there is this deep, rewiring that is happening inside of you, and that you need to be aware of what changes, what wants to come forward. It's super important. So because of that, we're also from last night, the 29th, we've come into the pre-shadow of Mercury in Leo going retrograde. And that is stirring up a lot in us too. So that is really helping with the Uranian shift that we're going to be seeing as it moves into Gemini. But I think more important is that Leo energy is, we all know it's like a fiery energy, and we're going to see some retrogrades within that Leo. So it's just going to get us to pull back and take some introspection to feel where that yang energy, where that fire wants to move forward. And that's going to happen all summer. So we're going to feel like there's like a little pull back, but in fact, what's going to happen is that there is movement going on there. There's a fire, there's an incineration. It might not be going as fast as we would like it to, but on the subtle levels underneath, it truly is moving. It truly is moving. And that's all, you know, deeply great for us when we're talking about what all of this energy wants us to do is just to fall into authenticity. I did a whole podcast on authenticity. It's super important. And like I said, this false face, all this horrible stuff we're seeing in the collective where people are deceiving others and maybe not even conscious of that. But that authentic self is going to come through. There's going to be a renewed optimism that's deeply rooted in us being authentic, in us sharing, the truths about our lives, our sufferings, not getting rid of spiritual bypassing language like judgmental, like, love and light, like it's all good, like positive vibes, because life isn't all of that. Of course, it includes that. Judgment is super important. The not so positive vibes are important. That creates change. So it's getting rid of all of that. I need to be perfect, or perfect Polly syndrome, as I like to call it, but rather being in truth and being able to express and share that isn't good, this isn't good, this is what I believe, without being too spiritual about it. So we're going to see that the wilder one inside of you, the one that calls in liberation, the one that is trying to break free from old patterns, is really starting to speak more truth in relationships. We're demanding sovereignty and passion and play, but not performance, hidden nonsense, hidden feelings, hidden desires, all that stuff that you've kept in the shadow needs to stop. When you look at someone and say something but feel the opposite, it needs to stop. We need to be radically truthful, even if we think that sometimes that might upset the other. The radical truth is going to change your world and others' world for the better. It brings you into a more, deeply aligned place rather than a false place. So yeah, it's this is all big stuff, and I think over the next couple of days, particularly Monday and Tuesday, we might be feeling quite tender, nostalgic, maybe a little unsettled. So it's okay to slow down, withdraw, and just protect yourself, especially for women, just being in our womb space and feeling what needs to be nurtured, actually, not fixed, because we can get really hell bent on self-healing, but what actually needs to be nurtured in us, cared for, tended sweetly. And I think that will allow us to go into that Venus Uranus shake up Friday and Saturday uh, much easier with more intention on love, sensuality, and freedom. Themes like self-abandoning, being unworthy, feeling too much, settling for less. All of that is going to really come into play. And I know that really, really has for me. Um, One of the things that I've really been feeling over the last week is this authenticity about really reclaiming what I want, speaking my mind, sharing when I feel something isn't in alignment with me. and taking good care of me, being more nurturing to me, kinder voice, more rest time, not so hard, not so fast. Those kinds of things are in the energy of this week, but yet not docile and apathetic, because there's a line between that, isn't there? And on a psychospiritual lens, which I really like to look at all these reports in, is that their archetype, I think the archetype of the serpent priestess is particularly potent in our collective at the moment. I did a whole class on the year of the serpent, which I'll include as a link at the bottom of this podcast if you're interested in really still working with this serpent priestess energy and what it claims and wishes to receive from you and put itself out in the world as it's super important. And all these shifts are working with the serpent priestess. And I think the weaver archetype, we as women are so good at weaving many parts together, weaving the sacred into the mundane, the feminine into the masculine. We're super good at weaving, and we've got to think about as this week goes on, what are we weaving? What are the things that we're weaving in our life that will eventually come together to create that wonderful web or piece of art in our lives or our life itself as our masterpiece of threads that we've put together. And that for me is thinking about all the things with regards to my work, my home, my land, my son, all of those things. Like there's been an intricate, divine, sacred weaving going on in my life. And I know as this retrograde ends in September, my life's going to look very different. My son moves to university and I will be on my own, completely on my own. For the first time, obviously, since my son was born. And that's a big transition for me as I work through menopause and all of those things that are big transitions for the feminine. So I'm holding the snake, the serpent priestess, really strongly in my psyche, but also knowing that I'm weaving a web of something that I'm not yet sure is because I'm not being fixed on the end, but rather weaving and working through what's showing itself right now. And then eventually what that will create. And I think for those of us that know the mystical and the magical, we know that we're weaving and the outcome is not ours to discern, nor is it ours to try to fixate on. It's in the hands of Creator. The Creator just needs us to weave. So yeah, a deep week of many, many things. I know this might sound complex. It is astrologically. It's working intensely with the collective for deep change. We know it's much needed. So go gentle with yourself with all of this and remember to know that the strands, when you make them conscious of what's being woven, will actually create a divine mystical masterpiece in the end. So I'm wishing you all much love as usual. Until next week, take care. Bye for now.